showing up. There are no sunshine patriots here, no pun intended. There should have been thousands of people here. But the way our nation is going these days, there are not that many of us that remember anymore the sacrifices that have been made by the military people that have gone before us. But we're here today for Mr. William Moss Dalrymple, who most of you knew as Mr. Moss. Moss was a true American hero. We throw that term hero about pretty loosely these days. In my opinion, when we give it to the undeserving, or at least the marginally deserving, we demean its value for those who have truly earned it. What word do we then use for those who go far above and beyond the call of duty? Moss Dalrymple was one of those rare men for whom no other word but hero would suffice. Moss enlisted in the Navy in the beginning of World War II. After training, he joined the crew of the USS Enterprise, better known as the Big E, and headed for combat in the Pacific. I still get a lump in my throat when I read what Moss and those other young men on that ship did for America, what they willingly sacrificed for their country. The following is a brief synopsis of Moss's record in World War II. It reads, the USS Enterprise CV-6, 1941 through 1945. Because of the brave actions of the men during the time that Moss was on board the Enterprise, the Big E became the most decorated ship in World War II. She and her men were the first ship in the U.S. history to receive the Presidential Unit Citation given by President Franklin Roosevelt himself. She received 20 battle stars, the most ever awarded to any American warship. Those stars stood for the battles at the Gilbert and Marshall Islands, Wake Island, the Doolittle-Tokyo Raid, Midway, Guadalcanal, the Stewart Islands, Santa Cruz, and the Solomon Islands, among others. Of the more than 20 major actions in the Pacific, the Enterprise engaged in all but 2. Her planes and guns downed 911 enemy aircraft. Her bombers sank 71 enemy ships and damaged or destroyed 192 others. During this time, the Enterprise was struck herself 6 times by enemy bombs and lost 300 members of her crew to killed or wounded in action. For many months there, the Big E was the only U.S. aircraft carrier left afloat in the Pacific. All the others had been either sunk or disabled. She and her men faced the entire Japanese Pacific fleet of 6 carriers alone. In defiance, these brave young men flew a handmade banner over the hangar deck which read, "The Enterprise versus Japan." I'm sure that most of them thought they would never return alive, but some of them did. At the end of World War II, battered but undefeated, she passed through England on her way home. There, the British First Lord of the Admiralty presented the Enterprise with the British Admiralty Pennant, the most prestigious decoration of the Royal Navy. The Enterprise is the only ship outside the Royal Navy to receive the pennant in more than 400 years since its inception. And as if this record in World War II wasn't enough, Moss continued to serve his country in both Korea and Vietnam, making him a decorated veteran of 3 wars. How many men can say that? He told his friends that he'd been captured. They weren't sure if it was Korea or Vietnam or both, but he liked to tell the stories of the 3 times that he escaped and got back to his unit and somehow survived the wars. His is a remarkable story, but to most people in Marshall County, Moss was just an old man who lived by himself and wanted to be left in peace. There were those in the community who felt that his time had passed and that he was just in the way. Maybe his time has passed. Moss Dalrymple lived in a time when the word hero meant so much more, when the standards were so much higher. Most of us didn't even know he was here, much less appreciate what he had done to preserve the freedoms we take for granted. Moss deserved a great deal more respect and honor than we gave him. He was a true American hero. For too long, Moss laid here, forgotten, his grave unmarked. But that is why we're here today, to dedicate his headstone and to say, thank you, Mr. Moss. We're also here to say thank you to all those other veterans of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and now Iraq and Afghanistan, all who have served and continue to serve their country with valor, honor, and patriotism. We say thank you to all these brothers in arms who sacrificed their time, their blood, and sometimes their very lives so that we may all live free. Mr. Moss is gone, but I choose to believe that he can hear us somehow, and that he knows that we truly appreciate his personal sacrifice, and that we here honor him at last.